everybody, Pineaaronapple here with the latest of the Ninth Doctor adventures, the third box set of Series 3, Buried Threats. Last time we came upon a murder mystery, Alpha Centauri, and an unfortunate teleporting accident. Now let's see if the trend continues of the box sets being rated from 7.1 to 6.8, or can we break the cycle, and if we do, will it be better or worse? Let's get into the first story. Our first story would make it Series 3, Episode 7, A Theatre of Cruelty by Lisa McMullen, a historical adventure about French playwright Antonin Artaud, who, in attempting to make a play about the tragic life of historical figure Beatrice Cenci, is the victim of an attempted possession. The story starts with the Doctor being very confused at why French people are invading the time vortexes. I think any of us would be. Knocking on his door and refusing to be translated. A scene we see again from Antonin's point of view, as he finds himself in an out-of-body dream, sent years ago to the announcement of Beatrice Cenci's execution, after the murder of her father, the woman herself bringing him back home and to the waking world, only to be met with 9 at the door. Christopher Eccleston returns to the role of the Ninth Doctor, and continues to be pretty good. Sure, there are some bits that don't exactly meet up with the original performance, but hey, that comes with age and time away from the role. But he still gets all the basic points down, and places effort into the performance. Then there is Antonin Artaud, played by Alexander Vlahos, known for playing Mordred in Merlin and other Big Finish roles, playing Dorian Gray in multiple series, and a small protagonist and main antagonistic role in the first series of The Diary of River Song. Certainly experienced, and puts a good performance into the character. There are a few undertones to the character, such as his past, his demons, and exploitation at the past's insistence that medieval means be a cure for sickness of the mind. And of course, as Beatrice Cenci, and not, is Elizabeth York Bolognini. New to Doctor Who and Big Finish, seeming to be her first role in both. And while she's barely in this and not always is the real character, when she does get the opportunity, her emotional performance is quite believable. Just wish we got a bit more of it. And when she finally gets the chance to be a bit more out there, she gets replaced by another actor we will get to later. Antonin wants to make a new type of play, one with sights, smells, sounds, going so far as setting his tragedy in a comedy theatre, much to the enthusiasm of the cast. But said story is written by the Force invading his dreams, taking the face of Beatrice, an apparition appearing periodically to the Doctor, who attempts to speak with it but gets little luck. After a nice reference to work by another Big Finish writer, Lizzie Hopley, they head to the Louvre to see a painting of what the apparition looks like, even attempting to Mona Lisa herself out of the painting.
Well, now there's a first. So let's try this for another.
9 finally shrinks the TARDIS to bring it into Antonin's house, and they explore these time-travelling dreams together. Antonin taking a book from the dreams into reality. It quickly starts crumbling as they start the rehearsals. The man playing her father is fun to hear, even if a little loud, both literally and figuratively in his performance, with the Spectre seeming to get fed up at 9's comments and leaving. They are once again pulled into a vision, but whether they manage to fall asleep while the loud performers were on stage, or if this is more of a daydream situation, but either way, this time we get Elizabeth York Bolognini's best performance, as they see the past, a moment where her father tells tale of killing his own sons, and threatening to cut the tongues out of all those he told as they flee. A real dick, so I think I can understand her actions in killing him. Similarly, Antonin brings another item from the dream, but is then left in a nightmarish fever dream, before waking up properly. A real Inception situation, that I feel they could have done a little more with, especially with the future focus on Antonin's inner darkness. The Doctor decides to go back in time and see Beatrice for himself, after the vision says something sketchy, so seeks a painting of her 2 years after her execution, and brings it back to Antonin, only to see a completely different woman. The Doctor getting a nice scene with the portrait.
You're right, Beatrice. Your story should be told. Told properly. And it will be. By Shelley, Artaud, Hopley, Spielberg. They didn't listen when you were alive. But they will one day. I promise.
The Louvre painting was only an interpretation from a time long past her age, so whatever it is inside his dreams took her form from his mind, not from the past. A clever trick. The Doctor wants to get rid of whatever is mocking her, so he once again heads into his dreams, only to find a vision of each woman proclaiming themselves to be the real one. And it's here we learn what the creature behind all this is. It's called the Astrophy, its true voice played by Angus Dunican, having both acted and written in a couple Big Finish audios. A creature from the dawn of time, laughing at the Doctor's claim of being a lord of it, and seeks to manifest itself through Antonin's dreams, like the book Goblet, and an accompanying thunderstorm for dramatic effect. It has an interesting backstory, evolving over time and being the reason for premonition, using humans' will of the future to bring ideas and dreams into reality, and being powered by electric shocks and the like. And of course, Antonin had once been in a mental institution, where it sounds like he was put into electroshock therapy. A memory we hear a bit of before the Doctor gives a good speech to Antonin, building him up to fight the Astrophy.
They didn't help you. They made you feel inadequate, worthless, but you're not. You're brilliant. You're one of the most fantastic creative thinkers of the 20th century. Your ideas will revolutionise theatre. Yes, you feel too deeply, think too intensely, but that gives you empathy. It gives you those sparks of genius.
He uses happy memories brought out thanks to the Doctor that we hear flashes of and endures a battle of wills, eventually beating back the Astrophy and saving the day. By the end, the Doctor sails off, and we end on a happy note as he somehow gets a postcard from Antonin, describing his travels and now happier life. So how was this evolution of the Shakespeare Code? Well, the acting was all pretty good, both from newcomers and veterans alike. The story was interesting and explored some new historical concepts I've never heard of, like the best usually do, emulating the show's original intent to teach the past with a sci-fi twist to keep you interested. The villain itself was a bit of a letdown, but really allows the characters like Antonin to thrive from an acting and story angle, even if the theatrics and speech of Antonin took a little to get used to. The opening scenes from his perspective leaving you as confused as he was. So I'll give A Theatre of Cruelty by Lisa McMullen a good start to a hopefully good box set. A good 7 out of 10. Could have had more to it, but what we got was entertaining and clearly had effort put into it. Just not without issue. Next is The Running Men by Mark Wright, a modern-day story where the Doctor arrives in 21st century Halifax, where a corrupt developer attempts to harness psychic power, while a time creature summons local folktale creatures. Yeah, this one is a bit all over the place. I liked it a lot, but it was definitely a bit stuffed. So hopefully we can go through it fairly quickly. We start with evil developer Annalise Avonlea, played by Pookie Quesnel, who has been seen in Doctor Who and Class before, and her bodyguard Grayson, played by Delroy Atkinson. They throw someone from health and safety into a deadly puddle of smog, the body seeming to proclaim the imminent arrival of the Running Men, a decent cold open. The main story starts proper as the Doctor encounters a herd of vortex amoeba, but quickly leaves as he gets a reminder for an appointment in Halifax. One that when he lands he is at least 150 years late for. 9 gets a lot more to do in this story than the last. Bits where he's quite funny, angry, exasperated. He just feels more well-rounded here than in the last story. He lands the TARDIS and is arrested for impersonating a police officer, which is a pretty clever story beat. The arresting officer is the pseudo-companion for the story, Sergeant Ambika Desai, played by Fiona Wade. And while for the first half of the story she's very rigid, she warms up by the end and makes for a competent assistant, and character in her own right, like a proto-Yaz that benefits from the short runtime. But I'll never get over the absence of D.I. Menzies. She's my only Doctor Who audio cop companion, and I'll stand by that.
Thank you very much.
The Doctor and Ambika work off each other well, and we hear more from corrupt businesswoman Archetype.
Well, look who finally decided to join us from his blowjob break.
Don't sell me short, I comped 3 men before noon.
Been there, done that, got the promotion.
As her press conference is interrupted by perturbed heritage local Frank Kelsey, played by Simon Rouse, who played one of the humans in Kinder, and he wants them to stop developing, as they will end up building on top of the real location of a buried historical site. 9 and Ambika continue their fun dynamic and are called to the woods, which turns out to be a mocking exercise from another cop, who I can't tell whether or not is just a general jackass or some kind of sexist/racist, and end up finding the body of the guy from the cold open. She wants to call it in, but the doctor manages to convince her of the severity of the situation, and they head out to investigate after the doctor is hit by a psychic attack, the mold/soot being identified as entropic degradation. The severity of the situation is communicated through 9 well.
I can't just... What are you waiting for? Orders from a lazy DCI eating a bacon butty. Something's happening here. Something I don't like. A man called Harry Glover has died. We owe it to him to find out why.
And I've realised now that all 3 of these stories have to do with uncovering the past. Beatrice in the first story, the historical sites in this story, and the next story's guest character is a well-known archaeologist. So I guess that links back to the title of the box set, well named. 9 and Ambika head to the building site, being of interest, and meet Frank being accosted by CEO Bitch. Annalise and 9 get another psychic attack, finding more degradation after her, and Ambika verbally joust about who arrests who, leading Annalise to retreat and regroup with a force that seems to possess her. Frank speaks about an uncovered relic, a gibbet, whatever that is, but since it was used like a guillotine, I'll just call it a blade. And we learn a Halifax-based proverb and get a jab in at Oliver Cromwell. The blade is fake, having been nicked, and after some arguing about bread, they head back to the site to enter the real blade's location, guided by Frank, but are intercepted by Grayson and Annalise as they enter the site, with some strange stepping sounds, like squeaky boots, something that would drive Mr. Krabs insane.
Yeah, I'm ready to order. What do you have? I'll take a...
Ambika slips away and manages to sneak up on them as Annalise villain monologues. But before she can arrest her for murder, the vortex energy on the blade causes more entropy to infect Annalise and Grayson, becoming a creature that summons and controls the titular running men, a local meaning of men escaping death, but in reality being more like zombie creatures. They take the blade and flee, getting to see a local infected and turned into a running man, like a zombie as said before. Frank getting a nice character moment, fleeing and coming back for them, to take them to a hidden place, knowing it well with his local cultural knowledge. It turns out the thing merging with Annalise is one of the amoeba from before, following the TARDIS's time track and heading back a few years, taking in all the energy of the town, especially the psychic energy from all the deaths and executions in the past hundreds of years, absorbing the surroundings and adding to the running men basically being zombies. And if not stopped, they will spread past the town. 9 gets some good emotion, verbally damning their plan.
Oh no, not having that. I might have caused the tear between dimensions, but you two are a perfect match. A primal creature of the vortex, hand in hand with another power-hungry ape.
And they head to the TARDIS after a nice history lesson. They enter the TARDIS with underwhelming reactions, and the psychic blasts were apparently the TARDIS warning them. They want to stop the amoeba's power base, so leave Frank with the final lever in the TARDIS, while they enter the nearby tower, and the climax is all a bit overstuffed. I wasn't really following the sci-fi jargon of it all, just interested in the personal stakes and speech, which I admit were compelling, but I found myself a bit underwhelmed with the rest. They all say their goodbyes with a nice wrap-up, Ambika ready to be contacted by UNIT, and Frank being placed on the board of development, and Annalise will be given mental help in her recovery, but will be tried for her crimes. So with that and a nice ending message, the story ends with them all getting lunch, and 9 repeating the saying.
There is a proverb and a prayer withal, that we may not to 3 strange places fall, from Hull, from Halifax, from hell. 'Tis thus. From all these 3, good Lord, deliver us.
So that was The Running Men, a story I really liked, but suffered from a few tropes, and some aspects that unfortunately didn't end up as well as they should have been. The characters were great, and the threat was credible. The history they referenced from an interesting truth, even if I don't know how correct it is, and the overall interpretable message about preserving history, and perhaps being able to read the whole being doomed to repeat thing into it, was an interesting part of the story, even if more could have been done. Overall, I really enjoyed it, but the faults keep it from being perfect. And although there was clear quality in the last story, I was just simply more invested in the characters, their dynamics, and the current story, whereas the most interesting parts of the last story were one single character and the past of a historical figure. so I'll give The Running Men by Mark Wright a pretty good 8 out of 10. So lastly but not leastly in this box set is Ancient History, and saying after listening to it, looks like we finally broke out of the 7.16.8 curse. This is a pretty good story with enjoyable characters, and while it's not amazingly complex or astounding, it certainly is enjoyable, and that's most of what matters, the clear quality of the writing and performances, plus the pure enjoyment coming together to make the story the best of the set. We have a returning guest star for this story, Professor Bernie Summerfield, played by Lisa Bowerman, a long-standing character from a long-standing actor, and I must profess that I haven't heard a lot of her stories. As far as I know, she was introduced in The Virgin New Adventures, a series I've only just started reading, and in the first 2 chapters detailed Ace's knickers and called a 13-year-old girl a slut. So I'm really looking forward to what shit that will throw at me. But in the meantime, I've heard her in a few audios before. The Buried Treasures anthology held 1 all-right story and 1 fantastic character exploration within an example of the classic thought experiment of killing Hitler as a baby, her cameo in Collision Course, and her main range appearances in The Shadow of the Scourge, The Dark Flame, which I literally don't remember anything about, and Benny's Story. Lisa Bowerman is a fantastic actress, and every time I hear from Bernice, I'm more sold on the character. A close friend of the Doctor and archaeologist before River Song made it cool. And the dynamic she seems to share with every Doctor coming across fantastically in this story against Christopher Eccleston. A deep care for him, but also not taking any of his shit. And of course, as I said, Chris as 9 does fantastic to work off her, and gets his own good material in the story. In this face Benny has never seen, the Doctor is undercover, trying to get to a buried TARDIS before the archaeologists uncover it, as it unfortunately is leading an army of warriors called the Karavin to the future. The Doctor says,
Imagine a species with the cunning of Daleks, tech skills of Cybermen, bloodlust of Vulprine.
Yeah, we don't know any of that for sure.
Now imagine they got out beyond this star system.
A nice reference to the unit audios. The Doctor, with his silly undercover name,
Professor Fandango,
is accompanied on the expedition by Benny, and our other pseudo-companion, or really Benny's companion, Finder Twisk, played by Eliza Shear, a funny robot named George, played by Gary Jordan, and a character a little too close in demeanour to Annalise from the last story, the uptight and self-centred Canterville, played by Rosalind Lander. Canterville messes with the time anomaly around the TARDIS, while 9 tries to apologise to Benny for hiding his identity, sharing some good scenes, and they return to base, the window into the past being breached by the Karavin. They attempt to come through the window from the past into the present, explaining why they suddenly disappeared all those years ago. Canterville wants to keep the Doctor, much like she wanted to keep the DNA of the Karavin from the portal, and in a pretty funny scene almost gets 2 for the price of 1, as Finder is registered with a double heartbeat.
Miss Twisk, I regret to inform you, you are also a Time Lord.
No, that's not possible.
2 cardiovascular systems detected.
oh, let me see that.
I'm not an alien. I'm
Pregnant.
A nice diversion that was hinted at earlier in the story. The Karavin take over, their leader corrupting poor George into an asset, keeping the portal open, and killing Canterville for her behaviour, which I mean, oh, I miss her. And with the nice dynamic of the escaped 9, Benny and Finder, they blow a hole so big that they uncover the TARDIS. The TARDIS is taken to control with the 3 heroes captured in tow, the High Karavin using the lives of Benny and Finder as leverage. So in a pretty good resolution, the Doctor distracts the High Karavin in the TARDIS while Finder cleverly distracts the other Karavin by convincing them she is a Time Lord, leaving Benny to have the unfortunate task of helping George essentially self-destruct, taking the device with him, killing the Karavin, aging them to death for the time they skipped travelling here, leaving only the one protected in the TARDIS, the High One, which Benny helps the Doctor dispatch. The ending scenes and interactions are both very well written and acted. And if they're this good to me, I'm sure that someone who has a lot of history listening or reading about Benny must be eating this up. And once I'm done with the books, you know I'm immediately going to jump into her audios properly. So with great character interactions, a pretty good story with a well built up villain, even if their actual exploits are typical war-driven alien behaviour, I'm pretty confident in marking this story my favourite of the bunch, and giving Ancient History by Matt Fitton a pretty solid 9 out of 10. And that leaves this box set breaking the trend and actually making it one of the 3 box sets of the series tied for first place, with the first box set that was a 3-parter, and the second overall box set that held some pretty solid and experimental singular stories. And I hope the next set, that will be finishing off Series 3 of the Ninth Doctor adventures later in the year, will be as good or even better than this. Hey, perhaps it could be the best one yet. We can only hope. Thank you everybody so much for watching my review of this Ninth Doctor audio series. It's been over 20 minutes, and I am sweating to death in the car that I'm recording this in on a 27-degree day in Australia. So if you have any pity for me, please like the video, comment down below if you wish or if there's something you want me to look at in the future. Subscribe to the channel, and if you do, ring that notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.